What is up, guys? Shout out Alan here, and today we're going to be talking about how to rank up your characters, because World Boss Ultimate and World Boss Legend is the end game. You're getting more materials to ranking up your characters, but if they're not quite strong enough, then we can run into some issues. So I'm going to give you guys a handful of tips on a path to kind of look at when you're deciding this is the character I want to rank up. And so without further ado, let's get started. Alright, tip number one is to look at your cards. And so to do that, you hit the menu, go to the card option over there, and look at your beautiful comic cards. When you're looking at your comic cards, then you will be looking for different stats. The stats that you need to focus on first is ignore defense and skill cooldown. And so if those are about at 50%, then all of your heroes won't have to focus on that individually, and so that's really nice. All attack is also a nice buff to energy and physical, but then you could also focus on energy or physical. Then you could look at crit rate and crit damage, then finally HP and dodge. Some of those are utility things, but if you look for ignore defense and skill cooldown, that'll be helpful for you. Energy and physical damage is also very impressive. The thing about these cards is they will buff every characters. All these skills that you'll see on my cards are applied to every single character, which is really helpful. And so your cards really should be the first thing that you can look at to see, is my character strong enough? You can craft. They added some craft where you have some pierce and whatnot, but first things first, check out your cards and see if they need to get to 6-star, or maybe even get some premium cards through different things. You can get some tokens, 10 tokens for a premium card chest from Giant Boss Raid, and then usually every update with the little season pass, battle pass looking thing, you'll get 300 those premium tokens. So actually by 2 events you should be able to buy a premium card, and then so that I would instantly put that in there, and then after that you can start looking at options by changing the extra stats that are required. And so yeah, so looking at cards. Alright, the first thing you want to do when you have a character now is to look at it, and you want to get them to 6 stars and 6-star mastery. I don't have anyone that can build all the way up from 1 star to show you that, but you'll get bios to unlock 6 stars, and then you get the Norn Stones to be able to get them to mastery. Once they're there and they're not quite tier 2, you'll have to work on their gear. Once a character is 6-star and 6-star mastery, then it's time to upgrade their gear to level 20. Also, on that 4th gear, there is a selectable option for those stat bumps, and so make sure you pay attention to that and look for, again, the skill cooldown or the ignore defense side. After that, then look at crit rate or crit damage, depending on which your character needs, and then you'll be ready to move on to the next step. The next step is to amplify Uru, and so what you're going to do is you're going to look at your gear slots and attach Uru, and inside of it you can hit amplify Uru. In there I would hit the amplify until you can get 3 or 4. You might get lucky and get 5, which is awesome, but what each one of those slots does is it amplifies the stats that are on the Uru as you attach them. And so if you have lots of gold, go for 4. If you don't have as much, go for 3. Again, attaching your Urus, you want to bump up the things that matter the most, which right now for Uru is their attack Uru. So if your character does physical, give him some physical. You can do 2 of each one in each gear, and so that's up to 8 Uru for your character for each attack. So you know, Iron Man is energy, so I'm going to give him 2 energy per slot, and so that way he is ready and bumped up his damage as well. Then you can start looking at utility ones like skill cooldown again, or ignore defense, and then look at crit rate, crit damage, and all that stuff. If you're doing more PvP, you can look at dodge and some HP stuff, but that's how I would build your guy and amplify your Uru. Next step would be to look at your custom gear or CTP, and so the CTP is the elite version of the custom gear, and so you'll want to look at things that'll kind of buff your stats. The best PvE CTPs are an energy and a rage, and so you'll have to kind of decide which one of those you want, but generally an obelisk will work for bumping up your character. I usually look for crit rate or crit damage, and then re-roll it to try to get a damage buff buff. It's like this one, lightning damage, and then a 200% damage buff every 10 seconds or so. And so look for ones that have the little sword icon under the bottom left of them. So those will have the damage buff, but only when they get an obelisk. But if you're upgrading a lower one, that option will change. And so just look for things, and so look for other things such as fire damage. If they do fire damage and you know that, then you can pick a fire damage that might have a damage proc as well, and just look at the stats and see what your character is probably needing, and so that you can move on with your custom gear. Then you'll want to look at the uniforms for that character. By general consensus, you should always try to get the newest uniform for a character, because that will have the best buff for those characters. It'll be complete, top to bottom reworks. You'll see different skills and stuff. And so anyways, upgrade those uniforms if you can with the bios and stuff. And each character that you also have for uniforms will actually compound if that uniform ever becomes an option for another one. And so for example, this option, you can see that will give me different stat bumps, and so the couple of those gears are also increases your normal stats that helps you, like physical and energy attack. Other ones are utility, like ignore dodge and HP and all that stuff. So get the newest uniform if you can. I know crystals are kind of hard to get, and so just grind out and save. You really shouldn't be using your crystals for anything else other than uniforms, unless you're paying a lot of physical money for this game and gambling it on chests or whatnot. But get the uniform, get the options that you need if can, and always just try to improve your uniforms. Usually on the tail end of every update cycle, where a new update is coming, they'll have a opportunity for you to re-roll ISO 8 sets at half a cost. This is the time you want to do it, because it's going to be cheaper. What you're shooting for is any of the offensive ones. I mean, you can do Overdrive and you can do Hawk's Eye, but I usually do Power of Angry Hulk, and so I got my Gambit ready to rock and roll. And so once you attach all the Uru for that extra set bonus, then it gives you extra stats, and that stats goes up and down depending on the rank of the ISO that you attach to the gear. And so when you're attaching ISO, make sure you're considering what is going on with your character. If it's Iron Man, then he's going to be doing energy damage, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to attach physical damage Uru. So just be mindful of that. Usually, especially if you're doing Power of Angry Hulk, the lightest blue one is for physical, the red one is for energy, and so for the one that you need, do something that's all attack, because that buffs both physical and energy, and that helps you out for the one that you are needing. And so for your the chaotic ISO 8, the rainbowy looking one, make sure you're picking stats that your character's needing, and so focus on these ISO 8s and the sets. If you can get Power of Angry Hulk, that's great. Any really of the 8 ones are great. I just lean towards Power of Angry Hulk for all of my characters, and so ISO 8 sets, and then you are ready to tier 2 your characters. Alright, you've done it. You've gotten your tier 1 character ready to rock and roll. Then you're going to advance them for some bios and some black antimatter and some chaos Nordstones and a good chunk of gold, and then you're ready to tier 2. After they tier 2, if you're looking and considering for them to be bumped up, you're going to have to enhance their potential. And so what that means is you'll have to use them in World Boss at some point. Whether you're doing Legend, you can use them as a support. If you're beginning, that's not going to be an option for you. If you are using that character, then you'll just have to have them be a member of that team when you beat a mission, and so it'll give them a little bit, and eventually you'll see where it is unlock potential. Once it's unlocked potential, then you'll have to enhance potential, and that's how you get your characters up to 62, 64, 66, 68, 60, and then eventually 70. And so there's 2 methods that I would recommend for when you get to that point. If you have lots of gold, then I would just try to do the 10% method, where you just kind of get up to 10%, then technically you have a 1 out of 10 chance for it to work. Once it works, then you're going to attach bios to get them up to the next level, next 2 levels, and then you will do it again, rinse and repeat until you get them up to level 70. The other method is to just simply go to 100% and dump a lot of gold, and so this uses the most amount of resources in gold and less amount of gold. So I mean, you look at it, you want to use more materials, then you'll use the 100% method. If you use more gold, then use the 10% method, and then that one's also based on RNG. For mutants, I would just go ahead and 100%, because their materials, the phoenix feathers and the Emcron shards, they have a cap on them, and so you'll hit a point where you may hit the max, and then you're looking for places to spend those crystals. So if you're upgrading a mutant, just go ahead and dump 100% on that. Alright, you got them up to level 70, and then you're going to think long and hard if you want to invest to make them tier 3, because then you're looking at using tier 3 materials, and so these materials are harder to get to, especially when you're at the beginning of the game, but you can get them up to level 70 and keep their gears at 20, and that's okay. They are very strong at that point, but if you're going to go ahead and start working on them, then you're going to have to decide and use your resources on that one character. I have many characters that I have built incompletely because I used some of the materials and got a gear up to 22 or 23 or something, and I cannot get those back. And then so just make a plan who are you going to actually tier 3 or enhance the potential, and then decide if that's where you're going to route. And so you can look at meta lists, you can look online, you can kind of see where everybody's using, but make a decision and go ahead and go for it, and let that character be the one you're going to pick to tier 3. Something else you can do once you have tier 3'd or transcend potential is you can look at enhancing type enhancement, and so that does extra damage to different types. For universal, it'll do more to the blast, combat, and speed type, and for whichever one they're stronger against, it'll bump them up as well, and so that's something else you can look at. One last tip that I wanted to give you guys is to do not ever stop working on your cards. Always look at them, and at any point during your processes, look at your cards and see if you can upgrade, see if you can move, you can change options, see if this 6-star that you have is just not giving you the stat bumps that you feel like you need to get your characters stronger. And so don't ever be content with looking at their cards, and also just be ready for uniforms. If you can kind of build up a character and get them really strong, and so who knows when they'll get another uniform, and so if they do, then that'll just bump them up that much more. And so always be ready. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, make sure you drop a like, it's really appreciated. Comment below if you guys think my Iron Man is awesome or trash, and I honestly think he's kind of trash right now, but there's going to be an Iron Man update very, very soon, so it's super cool, and so maybe he'll make him untrash. And so anyways, if you guys like it, comment, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell so you get the next video that we're going to do on Marvel Future Fight, and I hope you guys have a great day.